In the middle of a quiet courtroom, a teenage girl snapped her fingers. Her dog lunged straight at the defendant. The man recoiled in terror as the dog froze, growling at his thigh like it remembered something no one else could prove. What happened next left the entire courtroom stunned. But first, let's go back to the beginning. My palms were sweating against the leather leash, the kind of grip where you can't tell if your fingers are holding on or if they're just refusing to let go. Max sat beside me, his ears forward, his chest rising and falling slow and steady, like he knew what was coming. Like he knew the weight I'd tied to that one small sound. The courtroom was packed. It wasn't a trial anymore. It was a spectacle. You could feel it in the way people whispered before I even spoke, the way the judge didn't bother to look up from his notes, the way the jury barely masked their skepticism. And across from me sat the defense attorney, polished, smug, maybe mid-40s, with that tone that said he'd already won before the hearing began. "Miss Carter," he said, emphasizing "miss" like it was an insult. "We appreciate your passion, but we need facts, not teenage fantasies about hero dogs." I said nothing. I didn't flinch. I just stared at him, heart thudding like a warning drum. I knew what they saw when they looked at me. A high school girl in a thrifted black dress, ponytail pulled tight like I was trying to hold myself together with a hairband, a leash in her hand, and a German shepherd who hadn't moved once since we entered. But they didn't see the months behind that moment. The nights I sat outside with Max, holding those pieces of cloth the cops discarded as irrelevant. The hours I made him track the scent through our backyard, the mock drills, the hours replaying every second of that break-in until Max understood it better than I did. Because I wasn't training a pet, I was preparing a witness. I looked at my little brother in the gallery, shoulders hunched, face pale, eyes wide. I saw the scar near his hairline, a reminder of the night no one else would believe. I didn't ask permission. I didn't wait for a nod. I just snapped my fingers. It was soft, barely louder than a whisper, but Max heard it. And something in him changed like a switch flipped. The fur on his back stood. His eyes locked, not on the jury, not at me, but on the defendant. He stood. The courtroom erupted, and in that instant, the lie began to burn. The sound of Max's claws skidding against the polished wood shot through the air like a gunshot. Every head snapped toward him as he surged forward, leash ripping from my hand so fast it burned my skin. But he wasn't wild. He wasn't confused. He was focused, locked in, straight at him. The defendant, Brandon Hale, 38, polished smile, smooth voice, clean cut. The man who'd testified he'd never even been near our house. The man who said he didn't have it in him to hurt a child. The man who'd spent the last 3 days sneering at me across the courtroom, daring me to prove anything. He wasn't smirking now. The moment Max closed in, Brandon flinched like something inside him snapped loose. He stumbled back, chair screeching against the floor, hands up, palms out. His eyes weren't just wide, they were horrified. Like he wasn't looking at a dog, but at the moment he'd buried and thought would never claw its way back. Max didn't bite. He didn't have to. He stopped just short of Brandon's leg, his nose inches from the man's thigh, and unleashed a deep, guttural growl that shook the room like thunder rolling in from somewhere ancient. The judge's gavel slammed. The bailiff's hand went to his holster. A woman in the gallery screamed. Reporters stood up so fast their pens scattered to the floor. And me? I was already on my knees, whispering, "Good boy," over and over like a prayer. My hand trembled as I reached for the leash, but my voice held steady, because I wasn't afraid. I was furious. Furious that it took this moment, this animal's righteous fury, for anyone to believe what my little brother had said through tears. That a man came into our home, hurt him, left him bleeding and afraid, and walked away like nothing happened. Now the whole courtroom was different. The jury that barely looked at me was now frozen, watching Max like he was the judge. The same judge who had dismissed our original testimony was now leaning forward, mouth slightly open, watching like he'd just seen lightning split the sky. And the defense attorney? The one who'd mocked me minutes ago? He wasn't writing. He wasn't speaking. He just sat there, staring at Max, lips pressed tight like he knew. This wasn't a story anymore. It was evidence. The courtroom emptied out that afternoon, but the city, it lit up like a match dropped in gasoline. By nightfall, Max wasn't just a dog anymore. He was a headline, a symbol, a question no one wanted to answer. Courtroom erupts as dog targets defendant. Teen girl snap of justice? Can a canine deliver the truth? Footage from someone's phone, shaky, grainy, and real, hit the internet like a bullet through glass. Max lunging, the defendant recoiling, the leash slipping from my fingers. Over 1 million views in 6 hours, 10 million by morning. Comment sections split like a fault line. Some called it dramatic nonsense. Others hailed it as justice finally growling back. But the DA? They called it evidence. I don't know how they got the warrant, maybe public pressure, maybe shame. But they did. They brought Brandon Hale in, had him examined. And there it was, a scar. Not fully healed, low on his left thigh. Same place Max stopped. Same leg, same spot. A court-approved veterinary forensics expert reviewed it. She held up diagrams, measurements, bite radius charts, and the conclusion was terrifying in its precision. The wound matched the dental profile of a German shepherd weighing between 70 and 80 pounds. Max weighs 76. The prosecution reopened the case before the ink dried on their previous dismissal paperwork. Suddenly, the same people who had shrugged me off were standing taller, speaking louder. The judge, who'd barely looked up when I took the stand, now ordering a full evidence review. He didn't even let the defense object. And Brandon? He showed up with a new lawyer. Expensive. Older. The kind who specialized in damage control, not innocence. Now every seat in the courtroom stayed filled, every eye locked on Max, as if waiting for another miracle. You could feel it. The weight in the air, the hush just before lightning returns. But under all the headlines, behind the attention, I still felt that cold knot in my chest. Not triumph, not relief. Rage, because it took a dog, an animal, for them to believe my little brother had been hurt. Because my voice alone wasn't enough. Because they laughed at us, called it fiction, dismissed our fear as childish imagination. Only now, with the cameras rolling and Max's teeth recorded in a shaky viral clip, did they decide to listen. And I wasn't done being angry. When the trial resumed, the energy in the room had shifted. The jury didn't see a girl anymore. They saw intent, precision, purpose. I wasn't some emotional teenager with a dog and a story. I was a strategist who trained a witness no one could cross-examine. Max sat beside me, still as stone, eyes forward, every muscle alert but controlled. He didn't twitch, didn't whine. He just existed with the kind of focus that made everyone forget he wasn't human. A court-certified animal behaviorist took the stand, a woman with wire-framed glasses, gray curls, and a quiet authority that made even the defense stop scribbling. She walked the jury through scent imprinting, trauma memory in canines, the psychological cues dogs retain when exposed to high-stress environments. Then she explained the snap. One sharp sound linked to a traumatic scent memory, she said. What that dog demonstrated in court wasn't aggression. It was recognition. Every word struck like stone on glass, measured, cold, irrefutable. Then came the scar, the vet's report, bite radius charts, matching pressure, matching placement, no room for coincidence. And then came the thing no one saw coming. A junior forensic tech took the stand with a mislabeled evidence bag, found in a forgotten sublocker. Inside, a piece of fabric from the original scene, not even supposed to be tested, but lodged deep in one of Max's back molars, barely traceable, was a sliver of dried tissue, preserved. And it matched. Not just any sample. His. Brandon Hale's. The room didn't react loudly. There wasn't gasping or shouting. It was worse than that. It was silent. Brandon didn't flinch. Didn't argue. The next morning, he confessed. No deal, no conditions, just a signed statement delivered to the court. When the sentence was read, 20 years with no parole for 10, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't even smile. I just looked down at Max, reached for his fur, and whispered, "You did it." Afterward, reporters flooded the hallway like vultures sensing a fresh kill. Microphones, flashes, questions, all blurring together into one overwhelming noise. I kept walking. Then, just as we passed through the double doors of the courthouse, the judge, stone-faced and always distant, stepped out. He paused, looked at Max, then at me. "Justice has many forms," he said. "Today it had 4 legs." Max wagged his tail once, and in that moment I didn't need applause or headlines or credit, because someone finally saw me. All of me.